back, Dolphins fans. Today we're going to be I know by the title. I know some of you are either going to have some sort of opinion or another opinion, but we're going to talk about, honestly, do the Dolphins have a shot at making the playoffs still? I know. So my personal opinion on this, I'm going to be honest with you, I think it doesn't really matter, because, like I said in the last video, I think that the way that we're built is not right, and I think that it has to do with ownership and the general manager. You built a team based on flashy weapons, and you built a team based upon speed instead of physical toughness. And it's kind of showing. It's been 3 years where it shows every single time, but right now our schedule is the Jets, the Texans, the 49ers, the Browns, and then the Jets again. And honestly, when you really look at the schedule, if we win all 5 games, we're 10-7. There is a shot because Denver plays a lot of hard teams. I think they have to play, a couple of the playoff teams right now, which Denver's a tricky one because in the beginning of the year, I truly did not think Bo Nix was good. I thought Denver was not very good. But man, they've really, that's kind of what's hit us the most, is that Denver has just turned it on. Unfortunately, we lost the Indianapolis Colts, and they're still winning, and that it's just kind of the way that it's going. So the Green Bay Packer game was a very huge game, just based upon, number one, to see where we're at, because we had all this hope going into that game, and number two, we needed that game. That was the game that was going to. Football is about momentum. And that was the game that if we won that game, or even if it was close, that we would have, had that confidence going into the rest of the year. But at this point, unfortunately, losing that game the way that we did, I think it really took a toll on a lot of the confidence of people, and just even the pure fact that even if we get to the playoffs, what are we going to do in the playoffs? Because this is how it's probably going to go. We can't beat teams in cold weather because we make too many mistakes. You saw it right when Malik Washington fumbled that punt. I think we all knew when that happened, this game's over. So the only possible way that we make the playoffs is, number one, Denver has to come back down to earth and has to be what we thought Denver was going to be in the beginning of the season. Indianapolis also has to stop winning, and we have to win the rest of the 5 games. But the reason why there is still a shot, there still technically is because the Houston Texans, they've barely won most of their games this season. CJ Stroud is not playing the way that he did last year, which is understandable. It's a sophomore slump. People don't really have any records on you when you first enter the league, so you look really good. And now, people are starting to see what he does bad, and they're taking advantage of it. And he's, has to now adjust. He's going to be a great football player, but this year the Texans are not the same as they used to be. The defense and the offense is not the same as it was last year. And the 49ers, they placed Christian McCaffrey on injured reserve. I mean, they are like us last year. They are so injury riddled that they really have like no starters. Their first and second string backup running back are both out. So now it's going to be Isaac Guerriendo. I'm Spanish. That was embarrassing. Guerriendo. It's going to be Isaac Guerriendo. I don't know why I said it like such a white person. But it's going to be their third string running back. I mean, their receivers are depleted. It's a team that, in all honesty, we should beat. It's in Miami, too, so it's not even in San Francisco. And, it's the Browns and the Jets and the Texans. The problem with this, I think, is the Jets, because the Jets are a very weird team right now. It's the type of team that's 3-8, but there's so many good players on that team that it's tough to gauge what they're going to come out with. Now, the reason that we possibly have a shot is because when you look at the offensive line, Robert Jones did not play great. Liam Eichenberg, he's not a starter. You know what I'm saying? And I think it's clear as day that he's not a starter in this league. And I'm going to make another video on this, but Austin Jackson clearly was the anchor on that right side, and him being gone, I think people underestimated what Austin Jackson does for this team, because I'm going to be real with you, right when Austin Jackson went out, the run game stopped. And you can't just sit there and not acknowledge that. So when we talk about this team, Isaiah Wynn, he's practicing. Kind of think that he's going to play on Sunday. I wouldn't see why not. You're paying the guy. You might as well put him out there if he's good to go. And Bradley Chubb is practicing again as well. So what that does for this team, I want to pump the brakes a little bit on Bradley Chubb, because you have to understand that he's been out of football for about it's been probably almost a year at this point. Don't think Bradley Chubb is going to be the same as he was when he left at the Baltimore game. But when you get these players back, the offensive line, hopefully with Isaiah Wynn, will play a little better than it did last game, because, the thing is Teron Armstead is playing through an injury. It's clear as day, and Kendall Lamb was as well. So we got to see what Patrick Paul does. But when you get these guys back, the Jets are a team that you should beat both times. It's one of these teams that I think they've mentally checked out. But the problem with that is right now I'm not sure if the Dolphins have mentally checked out at this point. You got to win the next 5 games in order to go to the playoffs. And even then, there's still kind of maybe something could happen where even if you win the next 5 games, you still could miss the playoffs. The thing with this team right now is that we're not built to win against these elite teams. And the problem with that is that, even if we do make the playoffs, what's the point? Because I don't think that we're really going to go far with a team that has been built under this regime. But the small probability is, of course, the Baltimore Ravens lost. The Indianapolis Colts, I don't think, are going to keep winning throughout the season. They barely beat the New England Patriots. And Denver, I think, is going to come back to earth. If all of this happens, if all of that ends up happening, and the Dolphins beat the rest of the teams that they have on their schedule, then there is a shot. And I know I'm one of those. I'm very enthusiastic. I do enjoy watching Dolphins, and I want to watch them play longer than just the season, obviously. But this all has to happen. The next couple of games, or honestly, the next game is going to determine what is going to happen for the rest of the season. Because I think in order to get this team back, we have to beat the Jets, and we have to do it running the ball, because ever since Austin Jackson has been out, the run game has been atrocious. Last game, you think the cold weather, you probably should be running the ball in the cold weather. That's probably the case that should have happened. 19 yards was the leading rusher against the Green Bay Packers. That has to get fixed. Isaiah Wynn has to come in. Kendall Lamb is playing through an injury. You have to put Patrick Paul in there. You have to see what he's got, and he's just not injured. Kendall Lamb gave up a lot of pressures last game, and it's because he's injured. Liam Eichenberg is banged up, but at this point, you got nothing else, so Liam has to play. Or you move Rob Jones over there, but I don't know if you're just going to switch Rob Jones from left to right. That's a completely different, switching of the mold. So the run game has to come back. We have to beat the next 5 teams, and we have to beat them pretty handily for me to even feel like there's any sort of confidence in this team. Because right now, after that Green Bay Packers loss, you watch the defense, and you see that the defense is just underperforming when it comes to tackles. We're depleted on we can go into this all day, but the defense is depleted, and they're just missing tackles. The only thing that will help this defense is Kendall Fuller. And that's something that I want to talk about, is that last game, again, the depth showed that Kendall Fuller was out, and the corners that we have behind Kendall Fuller are not good at all. Cater Kohu has a rough year this year. Cam Smith is looking like a bust. Storm Duck, he's serviceable, but he's not, anything special. And the thing is, they're targeting him a lot because, Jalen Ramsey's on the other side. Kendall Fuller comes back. Bradley Chubb comes back. Isaiah Wynn comes back. Plugging these players in, if they perform and stay healthy the rest of the year, do I think we can make the playoffs? Maybe. It just depends on this next Jets game. I mean, we have to see what happens, but I think there is a 70% chance that we can win the rest of these games not because we're a good team. Not because of that. Because the teams that we're playing, 49ers are injury riddled. The Houston Texans, they're not playing as well as they were last year. And the Jets kind of look like they've given up on this year. The one that I would say is probably the least expected is the Browns, because we got to go over to Cleveland in the ice cold again. And Lord knows how this team plays. So I say 65% chance that this team can still make the playoffs. But again, at the end of the day, I even say, what is the point? I don't see this team really doing much against anyone, especially with Austin Jackson being out for the year. Don't really see this team being able to hold up against any of these playoff teams. And, it sucks because, it's the way that it's gone. But this team's not built tough. They're not built to beat elite teams. They're not built that way. They're built to be flashy and cool and sell tickets, but they're not built to beat elite teams, and it's kind of showing this year. But 65% chance I think we do have of making the playoffs. That's what I'll give it. Have to win the next 5 games, and Denver and Indianapolis have to come back down to earth. That's kind of what has to happen, or else there's always next year. That's what we always say. But it is what it is. As always, guys, love you all. Fins up, baby. Peace.